This episode is adapted from a clinician-written article on Mentalyc and brought to life in audio for therapists who prefer listening on the go.
I love that. So many of us are running between sessions or commuting, so this is perfect.
Exactly. And this particular piece was written by Courtney Gardner, MSW, and we're really excited to feature their perspective here.
Wonderful. It's always great to hear from fellow clinicians in the field.
It really is. And just for a little context, if you're new to Mentalyc, it's a clinical intelligence platform that supports therapists with documentation.
Right, which brings us to a topic that I think can create a special kind of anxiety in us. You know that feeling? That little jolt in your stomach when a client, maybe one you have a really great rapport with, casually asks, "Hey, can I see my notes?"
Oh my gosh, yes. It's like time slows down for a second. Your brain is just like cycling through every supervision, every ethics class, every HIPAA training you've ever had, all in about 3 seconds.
Exactly. It's not that you have anything to hide, not at all. But it's this immediate, okay, what are my obligations here? What are their rights? And what did I even write in those notes?
That last part is so real because there's a huge difference between the two kinds of notes we take, right? And I think sometimes early in our careers, that distinction can feel a little fuzzy.
So fuzzy. We're talking about psychotherapy notes versus progress notes, and they are not the same thing, not by a long shot. They have totally different levels of protection under HIPAA.
And thank goodness for that. Seriously, let's break that down because it's the foundation for everything else. Progress notes, those are the official record, right? Part of the client's chart.
Objective, factual, you're documenting diagnosis, symptoms, treatment plan, interventions used, medications, the client's progress toward their goals. It's the stuff that another provider or an insurance company would need to understand the course of treatment.
Right, the what happened of the session. But then there are the psychotherapy notes. And these are different. These are our notes for our eyes only.
Yes, I think of them as my clinical thinking space. It's where I'm jotting down my hypotheses, my questions, my own feelings that come up, the counter-transference stuff. It's where I might write, I wonder if this connects back to what their mother said, or felt a real sense of resistance today when we touched on their job.
Totally. It's the messy, unfiltered, behind-the-scenes processing that is essential for us to do our jobs well. It's not objective, it's subjective. It's our impressions, our analysis, our memory joggers. It's the stuff that, if taken out of context, could be misinterpreted or even harmful to the client.
Exactly. Imagine a client reading a note where you wrote, "Is the client exaggerating this symptom?" As a therapist, that's a legitimate clinical question you might be exploring. But for a client to read that, devastating. It could completely rupture the therapeutic alliance.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why HIPAA gives psychotherapy notes this special elevated level of protection. They are not considered part of the designated medical record that clients have a right to access.
Which is such a relief. But it also means we have a huge responsibility to keep them separate. You can't mingle them. Your official progress note goes in the client's file. Your psychotherapy note, that goes somewhere else entirely, in a separate, locked file, whether that's physical or digital.
And that separation is non-negotiable. I remember in grad school, a supervisor said, write your progress notes as if they'll be read in a court of law. Write your psychotherapy notes as if they're a private journal to your future self about this case. And that always stuck with me.
That's a brilliant way to put it, because progress notes can be requested. They are part of the client's record. Other healthcare providers involved in their care can see them. Insurance companies can audit them. So they need to be professional, clear, and objective.
Right. But the psychotherapy notes capture what the progress notes can't. The nuance, the subtleties, the story behind the story. It's where we track the deeper themes and patterns that might not fit neatly into a DAP or SOAP note format.
And that's the information that truly helps us provide effective therapy. It's how we review our own work, assess what's working, and explore different treatment avenues. It's how a space to be, well, a human clinician thinking through a complex human situation.
Which brings us back to that health-stopping moment. Because even with all these protections, there are times when we might have to disclose information. And that's where the anxiety really kicks in.
Yeah, the big, scary ones. A court order is probably the most clear-cut example. If a judge orders you to release the notes for a legal proceeding, you have to comply.
You do, but even then, there are safeguards. You don't just hand over your entire file. The order needs to be specific, and your job is to provide the minimum necessary information to fulfill that specific order. You consult with legal counsel, you get supervision, you don't do it alone.
Never do it alone. That's probably the #1 rule in these situations. And then there's the duty to protect. If a client discloses a credible plan to harm themselves or someone else, confidentiality goes out the window. Safety always comes first.
Always. And that's not just about psychotherapy notes. That's about any information you have. You have to know your state laws inside and out on what constitutes a reportable threat. That's our ethical and legal mandate.
Okay, so we have court orders and risk of harm. But let's go back to the more common scenario. The client themselves asking. What do we do then?
Okay, so first things first. Get curious, not defensive. Why are they asking? Is it simple curiosity? Are they feeling insecure about the therapy? Are they trying to remember something specific? Opening a dialogue about the request itself is a therapeutic intervention.
That is such a good point. Turning it into a conversation. That's an interesting question. Can you tell me more about what you're hoping to find in the notes? It shifts the dynamic from a demand and refuse situation to a collaborative exploration.
Exactly. And it gives you information. Maybe they just want a list of the coping skills you discussed. You can provide that without handing over your notes. Maybe they're worried you're judging them. You can address that fear directly. It's often not about the notes themselves, but about the relationship.
So true. But let's say they still want to see the notes. Legally, they have a right to their medical records, which includes the progress notes. But for the psychotherapy notes, we actually have the right to say no.
We do, and this is so important for clinicians to know. HIPAA allows us to deny access if we believe releasing that information could cause substantial harm to the client. And some state laws, like in California, are even more specific, noting that harm can be adverse or detrimental consequences to the client, not just life-threatening ones.
Right, like that example we talked about before. A client reading your unfiltered hypothesis could be deeply detrimental to their mental state and the therapeutic work. So if you decide to deny the request, you have to do it formally. You have to provide a written denial within 30 days.
And that denial needs to explain why in clear language and let the client know their rights to have that denial reviewed or to file a complaint. It's a formal process. You can't just say, no, sorry.
Right. But what if you decide to grant the request, or maybe grant access to some of it? The recommendation is to do it in a joint session. Never just email them the file or hand them a stack of papers.
Oh, 100%. Sit with them. Read through it together. That gives you the chance to provide context, to answer questions, to process their reactions in real time. It turns a potentially harmful data dump into a therapeutic experience.
It really does. You can say, okay, when I wrote this, here's what I was thinking about in terms of our work. It demystifies the process for them and reinforces the alliance rather than threatening it.
And sometimes offering a summary can be a great middle ground. I can't share my private process notes, but I'd be happy to write up a summary of our key themes, progress, and goals. Most of the time, that's what the client is actually looking for anyway.
It's all so much to keep track of, though. The different types of notes, the security requirements, the legal nuances. It's a lot.
Quick pause. If this part of the work feels familiar, Mentalyc can help. Its AI note taker supports your documentation and clinical judgment while staying fully HIPAA and SOC 2 compliant. You can explore it at Mentalyc.com.
That compliance piece is huge
because the security of these notes is everything. We have to be so careful about how we store them. We can't just have them sitting on our desk.
No. For paper notes, it's simple. Locked filing cabinet, locked office. Keep them separate from the main client chart. But so many of us are digital now, and that adds a whole new layer of complexity.
Oh, for sure. Your computer has to be password protected. The files themselves should be encrypted. Using two-factor authentication it's a must at this point. It provides such a crucial extra layer of security.
It really is. And a huge one that people can miss, being careful about cloud storage. Your personal Dropbox or Google Drive is not HIPAA-compliant for storing protected health information. And that absolutely includes psychotherapy notes.
Yes. You have to use a platform that will sign a Business Associate Agreement, a BAA, which is a legal contract that they will protect your client's data according to HIPAA standards. If a service won't sign a BAA, you cannot use it for PHI. Period.
End of story. And this is where tools designed specifically for therapists become so valuable. When you use a platform like Mentalyc, for instance, that HIPAA and SOC 2 compliance is already built in. The security protocols are there, the encryption is there. You're not trying to patch together a compliant system on your own.
Which takes a huge weight off, because our primary job is to be present with our clients, not to be IT security experts. Having a system you can trust to handle that piece it's freeing. It lets you focus on the clinical work.
It really does. And it also helps with the note-taking process itself. For example, the AI note-taker in Mentalyc helps you draft your progress note based on the conversation, but, and this is key, it does so without storing the audio. The transcription is processed and then it's gone. So you get the support for creating that accurate, objective progress note without creating this permanent audio record that could become a liability.
That is a critical distinction, because then your separate private psychotherapy notes can remain truly private. You're not mixing your clinical brainstorming with the official record. You're using the tool to create the compliant progress note, and your mind, or your separate locked file, is for the psychotherapy note.
Exactly. It helps you maintain that clean, ethical boundary between the two types of documentation. And what about when the notes are no longer needed? We can't just toss them in the recycling bin.
Just kidding. No, definitely not. There are rules for destruction too. You need to know your state and licensing board's requirements for how long you have to keep records. But once that period is over and you've decided with the client or based on policy to destroy them, it has to be done securely.
Paper notes must be shredded. Not just ripped up, but cross-cut shredded into confetti. And electronic files need to be permanently deleted or scrubbed, not just moved to the trash bin on your computer.
And you have to document it. Keep a record of what was destroyed, when, and how. It sounds like a lot, but it's all part of our professional responsibility to protect our clients' stories, from the first session to years after therapy has ended.
Their stories are sacred, and all these rules and regulations, as overwhelming as they can feel, are there to protect the sanctity of that therapeutic space. They're not there to punish us. They're there to guide us in upholding our most important ethical principle: do no harm.
That's such a grounding way to look at it. It's not about fear, it's about caring. Caring for our clients, caring for the integrity of the therapeutic relationship, and caring for ourselves as practitioners by staying within our ethical and legal bounds.
And knowing that you have the right to deny a request for psychotherapy notes is empowering. It's not about being withholding. It's about protecting the client from information that could be misinterpreted and cause damage. It's a clinical judgment call.
And like any clinical judgment call, it's one we should make with supervision or consultation, especially if you're newer to the field. Find a trusted supervisor or a peer consultation group and talk these scenarios through before they happen.
Yes. Role play it. What would I do if a client asked for their notes? What would I say? Having that script in your head makes it so much less terrifying when it actually happens. You're prepared, not panicked.
So prepared. I think the biggest takeaway for me in all of this is that Handling psychotherapy notes isn't about memorizing 1,000 rules. It's about understanding the principle. Progress notes are for the record. Psychotherapy notes are for your process. Keep them separate, keep them secure, and always lead with therapeutic curiosity when a request is made.
Beautifully put. It's about being intentional, taking a breath before you respond, remembering the why behind the client's request and the why behind the confidentiality rules. It's about being a thoughtful, ethical, and protected clinician.
And knowing your resources. Knowing who your legal counsel is, who your supervisor is, and what compliant tools are available to make the documentation part of your job easier and more secure.
Absolutely. Because when you feel confident and supported in your documentation practices, you can bring your full, present self into the therapy room. And that's what our clients deserve.
That's everything. This has been such a clarifying conversation. It takes some of the fear out of the topic and replaces it with competence and confidence.
I feel the same way. And if you want support creating accurate, objective progress notes while keeping your private thoughts separate and secure, the AI Note Taker from Mentalyc is designed to help you do just that.